Good evening. Welcome to the NC Speakeasy podcast. I am Chris Green, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Mark Skog. How are you doing tonight, Mark?
I'm doing all right, Chris. How are you?
Well, I'm doing all right. Last time we talked was what was it? Right after the Celtics series, or right before the Celtics series?
I think it might have even been during it. I can't remember.
Okay. Yeah, I can't remember either. But at the time, the Indians sucked. The Browns were about to go into the NFL draft.
That's right.
And we were keeping our fingers crossed, hoping we'd have something positive to talk about with the Cavaliers. And here we are just over a month later, and lo and behold, the Indians don't suck as much anymore. The Browns didn't screw up their draft, and we think. And the Cavaliers are in the NBA Finals.
I know. It's been an incredible kind of run. I was thinking about it today, knowing we'd be doing the podcast tonight. And there was such a change in this Cavaliers team from the team that entered the playoffs to where they are now. It's actually quite remarkable.
Yeah.
And I know people have touched upon it somewhat nationally, and it's been focused on a little bit more locally, but it is really incredible how this team has changed. You and I had conversations on just about every podcast waiting for this point. Mm-hmm. And I remember you and I were both on the same page of saying, look, the Cavs don't need to be a top 10 defensive team throughout the whole year. They just need to get to be that kind of a team going into the playoffs. And right before the playoffs started, you and I were like, well, they're better. They're not great. And lo and behold, look at what we see now. It's kind of incredible. Mm-hmm. You know, when Kevin Love went down, I thought, well, this is it. They're not going to be able to do this. And it seems shocking to me that we're at this point, and I still think they've got a chance in this finals.
Mm-hmm. I think they have more than a chance, and we'll get to that part of it shortly. But the one thing I mean, you're right. When Kevin Love went down, it's like, okay, and then J.R. Smith gets suspended for the first two games of the Bulls series, and we're like, okay,
and then Kyrie Irving gets hurt.
Then Kyrie Irving gets hurt, and they're like, oh shit. So it's like, what next can happen? I mean, we lose three starters within the matter of 3 games.
Yeah, so. It is. It's nuts, and I think it goes down to kind of 3 things that, in thinking about this, that I see. It's a real big testament to LeBron. I think there's times where we almost undervalue him as a player. He covers up so many sins and does so many things well for the Cavs and for, any team that he would be on. Mm-hmm. I think we almost in some ways take that for granted. I mean, he has played unbelievably and is such a big matchup problem for teams that it just changes the whole face of the game. So that's one thing I've noticed. The second is that those role players have really stepped up and played well. Yep. Tristan Thompson's been fantastic. J.R. Smith, Shumpert, they have all played really well. Who the hell knew Delhi had all this in him?
Apparently everybody that's at Summit Mall tonight, he's apparently got a line out to the street.
I love it. Cleveland loves the underdog. That's what we love. And so those are the two. So LeBron's incredible play, the way that these role players have played, and I really want to give David Blatt and the coaching staff a lot of credit. This team has totally changed its identity on the fly. Look, we know they're not playing the offense that David Blatt would envision. We know that. They started the year with one style of offense, more of a Princeton offense, ball movement, backdoor cuts, and they scrapped that. And, Brian Windhorst has said at the time he scrapped it because LeBron wasn't comfortable with it. And you know what? Okay, I get that. I'm not beating anybody up or passing any judgment on the decisions that were made there. So the offense changed into more pick and roll and isolation play, and it's stagnated even more, you can say, in the playoffs, and that because of Kyrie's injury and Love not being there, so much of it goes through LeBron. Mm-hmm. So you can almost look at that offense as being has becoming more simplistic. I heard Zach Lowe describe it, from Grantland, describe it on his podcast as caveman basketball. And he didn't mean it as like an insult. It's just more of it's a step back from where the NBA is now. Mm-hmm. All that being said, the defense that they are playing now, I think Blatt and the coaching staff has to get some sort of credit for this, to change it so quick on the fly and for these players to buy in. Who knows who's really pushing and pulling the strings behind there? I don't really care.
Nope.
I'm just very impressed that they have bought in. They've gotten much more disciplined. Their communication's so much better out there, and they are just killing teams on the glass. And I think that last part on rebounding is going to be a huge key in this series coming up.
Absolutely. I mean, you think about it, you lose one of the best power forwards in the NBA, at least in the last 5 years, and you went to the number 4 player, or the player who was drafted number 4 overall by the Cavaliers the same year as Kyrie Irving, and who most people had thought was pretty much a bust or an average player at best, and he's just went Dennis Rodman pretty much in the playoffs. I mean, they're talking about that was his idol, and he's playing exactly like Rodman does. Maybe not with the flair that Rodman did, but he's definitely making the same kind of contributions and difference that Rodman did.
I'd point to Tristan as being one of the absolute keys to this series coming up. I mean, part of it, obviously part of it is LeBron. If LeBron can find his jumper that has disappeared through this playoffs, if he can find that is a huge factor in the game. Kyrie's health is a huge factor. But then I think the next biggest thing, or maybe even bigger than some of those, is Tristan's flexibility on defense, his ability to switch on the pick and rolls, his ability to single-handedly dominate on the offensive glass and creating second shot opportunities for a Cavs team that at points isn't shooting very well. All of those things, it's incredible on how important he has become. And it's really impressive to watch. He's not a flashy guy, but man, you gotta love watching him. He is actually really exciting to watch play out there.
Yep, he has definitely made a huge difference, and I never expected to say that. I mean, you always hear during the regular season, and we've talked about him before. I mentioned earlier in the year I thought when they brought him in, they were getting killed on defense, and that's not the case anymore. The defense has improved with him in there, which is surprising to me. That they go small and they just pretty much lock down the other team. Now, I don't know that they're going to lock down the Warriors, but they have locked down the other 3 teams. And I mean, Atlanta was one of the more efficient offenses all season before the Eastern Conference Finals. So despite the injuries, they still locked them down. And I mean, who really expected the Cavaliers to sweep them? I don't think anybody did.
I thought Atlanta in the post was going to give us a lot of trouble. I thought between Millsap's versatility and Al Horford, who I really do love as a player and like his skill set, I thought he was going to give us a lot of trouble. And I thought, he was going to be able to pull Mozgov away from the rim and do a lot of damage. And, the Cavs big men handled all that very well, and they really frustrated Atlanta. They got in their head. They crashed the glass so hard, I think it really threw Atlanta off their game. They had a good game plan of saying, basically they committed to stopping certain players and they were going to let others take open shots, and it worked really well for them. And they did a similar thing, I think, against the Bulls. What makes me nervous is I don't think that they can play that same defensive game plan against Golden State. Golden State has way too many shooters. You look at Golden State's starting 5, and all of them cause problems. Even, the discussion has been, okay, well, who can Kyrie play against? And one of the thoughts is, well, you can kind of hide him on Harrison Barnes. Well, first of all, Harrison Barnes lit up Houston in Game 5. Their clinching game.
Yeah.
And secondly, I mean, he's not a bad player. I mean, he's not an offensive slouch by any stretch. He's not Klay Thompson. He's not Curry. But all of those guys can really give the Cavs some trouble, and it'll be very interesting to see what Blatt comes up with as what their defensive strategy is going to be in Game 1 tomorrow night.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Cavaliers have had this nice 8-day layoff that's going to help them health-wise because, they've had the crap beat out of them in all these playoff games. That's I don't think anybody can deny that. I mean, and that's something I don't hear a ton being said about. Everybody's been like, oh, Klay Thompson this, Klay Thompson that because of the concussion, but they've been healthy the entire playoffs. They haven't had the issues like the Cavaliers. I mean, you think about it. They've had Love out, Irving's been out, Shumpert's been really banged up, LeBron's been really banged up, and Thompson's been banged up. I mean, you can just keep going down the line. I haven't watched many of the Western Conference Finals games, but the East ones I've seen have been a hell of a lot more physical than the Western Conference games.
That's usually been the standard between the two conferences. And I think, I mean, I'm going to go on a bit of a detour here. I always find that to be really interesting. They've talked about, there's some idea because the East has been so weak this year of changing up the playoff formats going down the road and just getting the best 16 teams in. But one of the things I've always enjoyed was that there was a certain regionalism to the style of basketball that gets played. And I don't know why it is, but I remember this always from the 80s on, that from the Celtics, who were more of a tough, grinded-out type of team versus those Lakers Showtime run-and-gun teams,
yep.
You would see that different styles almost consistently through each champion of each conference on what they would be. And, it's holding true in this series as well. And I don't know why that is. It's really strange to me. You wouldn't think that would be the case. But and maybe I'm stereotyping it a bit. But it's definitely falling into that. Yeah. Now look, Golden State is like right in your backyard. Yes. What are you? I mean, this is really interesting for those who are listening or watching that don't know. Chris is on the West Coast. So what's the atmosphere been like out there? How are the Cavs being viewed? And I'm sure Warrior fans are really confident, as they should be, but are they viewing this as kind of a cakewalk, or is LeBron giving them a case of the nerves there?
I would say it's about 70-30 cakewalk.
Okay.
I mean, I haven't been totally into it out here, but just what I have heard.
Yeah, yeah.
The people I know, they're all like, oh, it's over. We had our finals. The Cavaliers are going to come out here. They'll be lucky to win one game. It'll be Warriors in 5, and we're already getting our parade ready out here.
That's interesting. I think that I love that Warriors team. You and I have talked about it before. They are awfully good. They're fun to watch. They play great defense. They're well coached. They have players that I, quite frankly, find enjoyable. They play an enjoyable style to watch. I would love to hate them. I can't. Maybe by Game 3 I will, but I really don't hate them. So I get why their fans are confident. I totally understand that. What I find a little surprising is the downgrading of the Cavs, either by some fans or national media. And
I think the national media is a big part of it. I mean, and I know the local guys cater to the local audiences.
Sure,
and stuff,
sure.
But from what I've heard, it seems like almost all the national guys are picking the Warriors. Now, they're not saying it's going to be a 5-game series, but they're all pretty much picking the Warriors.
Which I get. I mean, I would, I get that. More for me, it's that the idea. I've seen this kind of sentiment being thrown around of almost like the Cavs have played inferior opponents, while the Warriors in the West have had this really tough run. I mean, if we're going to be honest about it, the Warriors have dodged some bullets there. They didn't play San Antonio. They didn't play the Clippers.
Yep.
And I think those were the two biggest teams, aside from Golden State, in the West, and they just happen to be matched up against each other. You know? And I haven't thought much of Houston. I think the Cavs were a much better team than Houston. So I've seen national guys seem to act as if the Cavs would be the 5 seed in the West, and I certainly don't believe that with how they would have started the playoffs. And even as it shook out, I think the Cavs, given that who the Warriors have played in the Western playoffs, I think the Cavs are going to be the hardest team they've played. And I get the feeling that some fans and some national media don't think that way, and I'm left scratching my head a bit as to why that is, because I think that the Cavs can look. Golden State has certain matchup advantages in this, especially due to their depth. But the Cavs have LeBron.
Yep. And
the advantages that Golden State have aren't as great as the advantages that LeBron has. And what I mean by that is that the advantage at small forward with LeBron is much greater than I would think any other individual matchup advantage that Golden State has. Yeah. The problem that the Cavs really have to decide is kind of how to play Curry. And I think that they're going to go with Shump on him most of the time and see what can happen with that, and that will Shump's length give some trouble there. And I think that'll be an interesting matchup, but I just don't know what Golden State is going to do with LeBron. I mean, I like Harrison Barnes, but LeBron's going to eat him alive inside, and I just don't think Draymond Green, as well as he's done in some senses against some of the big men out there, he is undersized to LeBron, and I don't think he's going to be able to hold up against him strength-wise.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing is, I mean, the Cavaliers have the one big question with the Cavaliers, obviously, is Kyrie Irving. How is he going to be moving and all that? Because if he can't stay with anybody defensively, I mean, and everybody, this point's been made over and over that they were able to hide him at times in the other series when he did play, and they're not going to be able to do that against Golden State, which is true. If Irving can give them an offensive boost, though, that's kind of what they're going to have to get from him. He's not going to give them much defensively. I would say you'd almost say he's like Kyrie of old. I mean, is he really going to be any worse than Kyrie was at the beginning of the year defensively at this point? I mean, I know he grew a lot this year defensively, but just health-wise, he's just not going to be able to do the same things. So he's pretty much just going to have to do the best he can and then score and hope that his scoring out negates his lapses on defense.
Yeah, and I think this is where the Cavs' help defense and their newfound communication and effort and abilities are really going to be put to the test, because they are going to need to help on Curry. They are going to need to help on those pick and rolls and those plays that they are going to need to be able to kind of string him out and to offer some assistance and then get back to the open man. And that's what I really want to see happen if they can do that.
Yep, exactly. This is going to put the test to see how. I mean, Blatt's done pretty well strategy-wise, except for very few incidents. But so we'll see how he does in this series. I mean, you've got two rookie head coaches going against each other that have a bunch of seasoned assistants. So, we'll see what happens as far as that goes. But I think this is going to be a good series. I don't expect either team to win it in less than 6 games.
I agree with that.
So I think it's going to go at least 6 no matter what. And let's just get into it. Who do you think is going to win?
Chris, I've been back and forth on this. My head says Golden State in 6 or 7. My heart says Cavs in 6 or 7. I don't mean to cop out, but have a great. I think Game 1's going to tell me a lot. I just don't know quite what they're going to do in certain matchups. I can't quite conceive it yet. The NBA is all about matchups, and you can see on paper where Golden State has certain matchup advantages, but it's a question of how well the Cavs play as a team, and can they get guys to step up to be a consistent scorer, from three. I think, let's put it this way. I think if J.R. Smith and Shumpert and Kyrie can hit, 40% from threes in these games, consistently through all these games, if they can find that reliable outside three-point shooter to hit, 4 or 5 in a game, I think the Cavs can win this series. But I think that needs to happen. And I think that the other thing that needs to happen is can they get Draymond Green in foul trouble? I think he's a real key for Golden State, and a lot of what they do kind of revolves around him. If those two things can happen, I think the Cavs, I'll say Cavs in 6. If that doesn't happen, then I'll say Golden State in 6.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
I mean, it feels like a cop-out, but I guess I don't know enough to feel confident in making a pick outside of a homer pick. You know what I mean?
Just make a pick, damn it.
I'm sitting on the fence here. So I'll feel more confident after game 1 to be able to say something like that.
You cop-out artist.
I know. I'm pathetic.
Yeah, that's all right. I mean, I haven't been out there bragging with anybody out here. I don't feel the need to. I mean, they're doing enough for the Warriors of themselves, so I'm not going to get into that pissing contest with them. But I think the Cavaliers are going to win it. I think it's going to go, like I said, I think it's going to go 6 or 7. I'm predicting Cavs in 6, but we'll see what happens. I think the shooting is going to be a key, and also how the officials call the series is going to be a key.
Yes, I agree.
If they let the Cavs use their physicality in this series, I think that's going to be an advantage for them, because I think they're a tougher team right now than Golden State is. I think Golden State, while they're a very good defensive team and they were the best defensive team this year during the regular season, I don't think they're a big physical defensive team. So,
I agree.
And if they're calling ticky-tack fouls left and right, then that's going to be in Golden State's advantage, because that's going to play to their strengths, and they're also, I think, a better free throw shooting team than the Cavaliers are. So that's going to be important, and then it's going to come out to the shooting, because I mean, let's be honest, Golden State is a jump shooting team. They go as the jump shot goes. So if Klay Thompson and Steph Curry aren't hitting their jump shots, they definitely don't go as well as a team. And they've been bailed out a few times during this postseason when they haven't shot well, and I don't think the Cavaliers are going to let them have that, because the Cavaliers can shoot the ball probably as good, if not better, than any team they played in the postseason.
The one thing we really haven't talked about, we talked about it a little bit with Kyrie, because he's the one injury we know. But, frequently injuries do come into play in a 7-game series, especially against teams that you see over and over again. Things can get a little rough.
Yep.
Excuse me, guys can get banged up. And I have a feeling that will be an unexpected event that occurs, and that can really throw a series off. We don't know where it would. Yeah. I mean, let's put it this way. If Klay Thompson gets a concussion in Game 1 of the Cavs series instead of Game 5 against Houston, I think everyone's going to view the
series entirely differently. Yep.
Yeah, they really do. And those are one of those things when you're making picks or you're analyzing a game, you really – how can you take that into consideration? Because you don't know who might get hurt, and B, you don't know how their backup's going to play. When they come on in. I mean, look at Tristan. I mean, I was nervous. I actually didn't want them to put Tristan in the starting lineup when Love went down. I thought you'd see more of a guy who would be a three-point shooter, from a Mike Miller to a James Jones, and bring them on in and try and keep that same offensive style of spreading the floor, but. When that didn't work in Game 1 versus the Bulls, they completely shifted everything around, and then look what developed out of that. So, something like that can happen in this series, and it is the unexpected. And to be honest with you, that's one of the reasons why watching these games are going to be so enjoyable. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And let's be honest real quick on that point, Mark. Every series the Cavs have played in, there's been a significant injury.
You're right. The Bulls lost Gasol. The Hawks lost Corver and Damari Carroll. Was a shell of himself after his knee injury. And I know we're way past that Atlanta series, but let me just say, I'm totally impressed with Damari Carroll. I mean, that guy played his ass off with
one leg.
With one leg in games he should not have been playing in, and he's a free agent up for a contract. I'm sure Atlanta fans appreciate that. I just hope NBA fans kind of really, even Cavs fans, sit back and say, damn, man, that's a really gutty performance. I mean, if a Cavs player did that, we'd be applauding him all day long, and I'd see no reason not to do it for Damari Carroll. But back to what we're saying, you're right. These injuries happen. They've happened with the Cavs, too. Love in the Celtics series, losing Kyrie for part of both Chicago and Atlanta. And so, Shumpert getting dinged up. So something's going to happen that's going to be unexpected, and we just don't know what that's going to be, and we don't know how teams will react to it.
Absolutely. I mean, who really expected after the regular season Delhi to lead the team in scoring in one of the games and almost put up 20 a second night, too?
What do you think of this whole Delhi phenomenon? What's your feeling on this? What's your opinion on the reputation that he seemed to quickly garner around some parts? What do you think about the fan reaction to this? It's been fun to watch. It's been crazy.
It's fun to watch. I mean, it's typical Cleveland back in the like you said, back in the underdog or the little guy. I think the whole he's dirty thing was way out of nowhere, and it's just somebody coming up with a bunch of BS. I mean, yes, he leg locked Taj Gibson in that one game. There is no debating that. But beyond that, he didn't do anything dirty that you could see in any of the other games. So I'm sorry, but that whole thing is just a bunch of crap. They're mad because they're getting out-muscled by some little Australian Tasmanian devil guy who I take some of the ugliest shots I've seen just north of Sean Marion anymore.
Yeah, his jumper's not pretty.
Well, not the jump. I'm not even referring to the jumper. You know, I can live with the jumper. It's just some of those layups. He just like flips that ball. I'm like, what the hell is that, Delhi? I mean, come on.
He's not aesthetically pleasing.
No,
I will agree with that. And I loved him on the podiums afterwards in a ratty hoodie, looking like he was just dragged out of a corner bar somewhere.
Where's my Fosters?
Yeah, I will say, in all seriousness, I was stunned that he really did seem to get into Atlanta's head. They really did seem to get focused.
Into Chicago's head too.
Yeah, and I can he do it 3 series in a row? Will Golden State kind of, I don't want to say fall for it, because I think he genuinely is annoying. I mean, if I was playing a pickup game at the Y, I would not want to play against a guy like this. He would piss me off to no end, you know. But because he's like face guarding guys immediately after made shots. He's playing tight D on the ball as they're coming up the court. You see this stuff all the time, and I think it generally just annoys people. And I wonder if that's going to be a factor in this series.
I think he's going to annoy the Warriors. The problem I worry about is that he's going to try to get up on Curry, and Curry's going to blow by him left and right.
Yeah, I mean, Curry that guy is just so damn impressive. He is really, really good.
And he's annoying as hell, too. I mean, there's nothing about him that actually is, but as being on the opposing team, I just smacked that little baby face. I was telling to go out there and punch him in the first game.
Yeah, his ability to get that shot off. I mean, I saw. I don't know if you follow on Twitter David Zavik, who runs the great Fear the Sword blog, and he was tweeting out some shooting charts from Curry, and the left-hand corner 3. He is shooting 92.3% in this playoffs.
Oh my gosh!
He's missed one corner 3 from the left-hand side. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, I've just never seen a shooting display like this guy. And so the Cavs do have to find a way to kind of disrupt that. And I think that is another like huge defensive key for the series. Can they do that? Can they do enough to make him uncomfortable at points? And if someone's going to make you uncomfortable, Delly might be that guy. He's not enough physically to kind of handle Curry. I mean, Shump is going to be the guy to kind of really have to do it. But it'll be interesting to see if they can.
The only thing I worry about with Delly is if he does something to Curry. I mean, these Warrior fans are, they're Raider fan too. So you've got the crazies coming out of the woodwork there after Delly.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
But it's like I said, it's going to be a great series. There's no doubt about it.
I feel so different about this than in 07. 07, I totally.
Everybody's just glad to be there.
I really was. It's a stereotype. People say it all the time, but it was so true for me. You didn't think we were going to make it. You knew our team. Hell, we didn't think our team was good enough to beat Detroit. So we make it to the finals, and as much as we got blown out in that it was a sweep, every game was close, but it was just clear that San Antonio was a much better team, and I kind of didn't care. I wasn't broken up with each loss because I didn't expect to be there. And now this year it's really different. I mean, we're the underdog, but I look at it.
And I'm glad about that, by the way. I'm glad they're the underdog.
I kind of am too, and I'm kind of glad they're starting on the road. I think that, it's going to, because if you get one of those two games, it really puts some pressure on Golden State.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think that this team, sometimes at home, you've seen LeBron come out just so jacked up, and them start kind of wild. Excuse me, but I think that I'm hoping that playing out on the road will help him come out with a sort of a focus and be able to withstand the first couple runs that Golden State makes that they're inevitably going to make in Game 1, and then really kind of settle in and play well from there.
Well, and that's what I'm going to be curious to see is, I'll be honest, I think there's a good chance Golden State's going to come out on a big run to start the game tomorrow night with the energy, or Thursday night with their energy and the home crowd and just everything. Just like Atlanta did in the first game against the Cavaliers, and they just have to weather the storm. And if they can weather the storm and keep it and get it back within striking distance there, then I'm not worried about it. I expect them to split the series in Golden State, for sure.
Yeah, I kind of do too, even when I was thinking about, if Golden State can do certain things. But I'd be kind of surprised if it doesn't come back at 1-1 to Cleveland. And where it goes from there, will remains to be seen. But, yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Absolutely. So, well, it'll be interesting, and it starts Thursday night, so we'll see what happens. But
yeah, I'm excited.
So, why don't we move on to the other team who's actually playing fairly well these days, shockingly enough, and that would be the Indians. So we've since we last talked, we've had a 18 strikeout game by Corey Kluber, followed back up by a 13 strikeout game, and he's now struck out the most games in a 3-start stretch since Randy Johnson, I believe, or 4-start stretch since Randy Johnson.
I think that's what I heard.
Yeah.
He has become, he literally has, there's very few players, I'm a baseball fan, I will watch any team in the playoffs, and I watch the Indians games. But there's very few players anymore that I tune in to watch. Mike Trout, certain guys like that. Miguel Cabrera is amazing, as much as I hate his guts. So, but Kluber has become literally appointment viewing for me. I now know when he's going to start. Normally that day I look and see, okay, who's starting for the Tribe tonight? Oh, okay. And think about the game from there. But now I'm picking out when Kluber's going to start. I mean, that 18 strikeout game, I think, was I can't imagine. I think it's the greatest pitched Indians game that I've ever seen. I was really thinking, statistically, there's really has been no better pitch game for the Indians in my lifetime. That was amazing.
Yeah, it was. And that was the game too. He had the no hitter going, and I told you on Twitter, I was like, I can't turn it on. I haven't started. I didn't want, it's like, I don't believe in the jinxes and stuff. It's like, you know what? He's going so good right now. I'm just not going to mess with it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's like, son of a bitch, you got to hit. So,
yeah, it was right after that he got the hit. But yeah, so the starting pitching has been, this is one of the things that you and I've talked about on this team is that, well, okay, we expected Kluber to be good.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know he was going to be Cy Young good like he has been recently.
Yeah.
And we said, so will the young guys develop? Will the guys behind him develop? Well, shit, I mean, they seem to be developing, and they really have. And so the question was, okay, can the Tribe get enough hitting? Well, in the beginning of the year, they couldn't.
No.
But all of a sudden, all right, we're starting to see some guys come through, starting to develop, and then the question was, what can the defense do? And that has been an unmitigated disaster still. And I don't know. I mean, Chris, you know more about this than I do. How much does a bad defensive team, how much, what do you need to overcome that? What do you need from your pitching and your hitting to overcome that? I mean,
well,
it's been tough to watch at points.
Yeah, I mean, that's carryover from last year, and they're like, oh, well, we're going to have this great defense this year, and I questioned that when they're like, oh, we're going to put Brandon Moss in right field, and it's like, okay, he's been at first base and DH, and we're putting him in right field now. He hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been, I wouldn't say he's been an improvement over anything the last couple of years. I mean, Brantley is solid in left. Michael Bourne he's been okay this year, but he's still not the player that we expected. I mean, hitting-wise, he was atrocious for the first 7 weeks of this season. He's been better lately, but he's still defensively. He isn't the player he was advertised in Atlanta and Houston and Philly, and he's definitely not the base runner that we thought we were getting. The guy has stolen 30-some bases in 3 years, almost 2.5 years now, and he stole 50-some in the last season alone. He was in Atlanta. So, I mean, it's just I don't know what to make about that. Swisher is Swisher. We've already gone down that trail. He hasn't done anything since he came back, really. I think he's had 2 decent games out of the 20 he's played in now. And Gomes being out hurt, the bullpen has been really inconsistent, which they were expecting it to be a strong suit.
Yeah.
And I would say I expect to be better than it was, but I mean, bullpens are so fickle every year. You never know what you're going to get with it. So the starting pitching, I mean, think about it. Kluber had 2 good starts, and then he was not real good for about 4 weeks in a row. And then he's turned it around, and he's been lights out the last 4 starts. So he seems to have turned his season around. But the offense is just, other than Jason Kipnis, who has really had a huge month of May, the question is, will he continue it the rest of the year? I mean, his trends for pretty much since he's been in the big leagues is he has a great first half and not so great second half. So we'll see what happens with him.
Well, you and I discussed Kipnis in length right before the season started, because I was questioning, who is Jason Kipnis? Who is he as a player? And, we noted that 2 years ago when he had a nice season, it was really predicated off of a very long hot streak, in May and June, I believe it was. And I am not complaining that he's having a hot streak now. I'm loving it. Don't get me wrong for anybody listening, but it's more of the idea of, okay, what is he going to do after this?
Yep.
As a way to tell me what kind of a player he is. I'll take every hit and every run he scores right now that he's going to give me. I'm not saying that, but I still don't know who Jason Kipnis is. I think we see who he can be.
Yeah.
But let's see if he can kind of keep consistent with it, much the way Brantley has.
Yes. Brantley is definitely the best player on this team.
Yes.
He's the most consistent and the best player on this team, flat out. And I mean, 2 years ago, or I'd say 3 years ago, I would have been surprised to say that, but he has now shown that he is definitely the best overall player in this team, and he's consistent. Carlos Santana. Oh, so go ahead.
Do you think Moss has given us what was advertised?
For the most part, I mean, we expected home runs. He's hit home runs. He has not hit for much of an average.
Well, we didn't really expect that, did we?
We didn't. I kind of said I don't think we know what we're going to get. I expected probably in the 250s, but I mean, he's still, I think he's around 230 is right now.
I'm looking right now. They got him at 247. He homered today. He has 2 hits tonight, 247. I mean, if he gives us 250,
so, 250, with Pop, and he's got 9 home runs now.
Yep, he's got 9 homers. So
so he's on pace to hit 30 home runs this year. So I mean, that's nothing.
Man.
Nothing to sneeze at there. But the person who I expected to take a step forward now that his position was settled is Carlos Santana, and he is still the same inconsistent player.
He is. I've been a big defender of him, and it's hard for me to be a defender of him.
So, I mean, I don't know if it's going to be like he has, where he struggles in the first half, and then he kind of comes on in the second half again this year, but you would think, I mean, last year I thought a lot of the struggles early had to do with them trying to move him to third base, and then, he was the catcher before, so he just had so much more going on, and now that he was at first base, and he could just focus on that and focus on hitting, I expected to see a bump up, and it just hasn't been there. I mean, he's not even the cleanup hitter anymore. He's the number 2 hitter now.
Yeah, for a guy who has a good batting eye, he and is disciplined in that sense at the plate. He's certainly not disciplined with a swing. Yeah. He's got that big, wild, looping swing, and at times you just would think if he shortened that up a bit, he'd have so much more success. And I don't know what that is. I know our man Marcus had pointed to an exact time. He knows the exact plate appearance where all that changed for him, and it was a game-winning home run that he hit about 2 years ago or so. And he said he noticed after that Carlos became more of the big swinger, and I actually kind of trust Marcus on that because he was really paying attention to it, and I thought that was an interesting breakdown on someone like Carlos, and it would be nice to see him pull it back, but he doesn't seem to be inclined to.
Yeah, and I mean, he is going to be what he is, I guess, at this point. You just got to say he's probably going to hit in the low to mid 200s, and hopefully he'll get in the 20 home runs, 70 some RBIs, but I don't know if we can expect more than that from him. And I mean, you don't have to be crazy and say he's got to hit 300 and stuff, but I just expect him to do better, and he's done, and I've just been disappointed in him so far. So let's go to our other corner infielder, Mr. Chisenhall, and I tell you what, as he had that huge beginning of the year last year, and since then it's just not been there, and he is so frustrating because it's like I want to root for him, and I keep thinking it's going to click, and it just doesn't seem to be.
Yeah, I agree. It's that thing, he was a guy much like Kipnis that we said we don't know who he is, but I think he's establishing who he is now. And that is unfortunate. And I don't know, him and Ramirez, you wonder how, for a team that's just under 500 now, and let's be honest, they have a shot. There were only, I think, yesterday 3.5 games out of the wild card.
Yep.
So, and with the starting pitching that we're beginning, we're definitely in this. And to be honest with you, the starting pitching really makes the team fun to watch. But when you get certain performances at the plate, it's just so frustrating for fans. And so Chisenhall and Ramirez are two of those guys. And I don't really know what the backup plan would be. Like, obviously, for Ramirez, Lindor is, the holy grail that fans keep searching out for. Okay, I don't know if Lindor's ready. I'm not even going to necessarily fault the Indians if they want to wait until his Super 2 eligibility or whatever that is.
I think that's obvious that he's not coming up before then.
Yeah, okay, that's fine, but I think that that Antonetti and Francona have to make a decision there. I don't think that they can, for the next 4 weeks, keep trotting him out there, hitting. I mean, he's not. Is he hitting 150 at this point? He looks lost out there.
188. Yeah.
So they, at least get Aviles a number of days in a row at short or something like that. And you would know better than I do, Chris. I don't know what the backup plan is for Chisenhall. Can you also consistently put him at third base with a team that's in contention?
Yeah, well, I mean that's the problem. I mean the backup plan for Chisenhall is the same as the backup plan for
Ramirez.
It's Mike Aviles, and so and they just got to pick and choose. And right now, I don't know that because I mean the other alternative for Chisenhall, so you've got Lindor for Ramirez, but he, like I said, he isn't coming up before the Super 2 stuff is taken care of, so you're not going to see him before the end of sometime in the third or fourth week of June, and that's depending on how he's playing at AAA. I mean, I know he's not exactly tearing it up down there, so I don't know if that's just their easy way to justify not bringing him up yet, which I know they have said. But the backup for Chisenhall is Giovanni Urshela, and he hasn't. He's kind of in the same boat. He hasn't done much down there at AAA either, and I know he was hurt for the early part of the year too. So,
will this team make a move at? Let's say Lindor isn't. Okay, let me ask you two questions. One, do you believe Lindor is coming up this year? And two, will the team make a move to have a major league option at third base if Chisenhall doesn't turn around quickly?
This year?
Yes.
Okay, so
for this year for a playoff run.
Lindor will be up at some point this year.
Okay.
I can't say whether it'll be June 20th or September 1st, but he will be up at some point regardless. I don't see any reason not to bring him up in September. I mean, if they're in the playoff run, he's a great defensive player whether he hits or not. So, I mean, you can bring him as a defensive replacement or as a pinch runner if you need to. So I definitely expect to see him up no later than beginning of September, depending on what Columbus is doing playoff-wise type deal. But I think if Ramirez is in the same boat, you'll see him up probably before then. At this point, I would say he'll probably be up by the All-Star break or right after, in all honesty. As far as Chisenhall goes, it's just going to depend on what the team's doing. I mean, if they're still playing well and despite him, then you may just see them live with a platoon between him and Aviles. You may see Aviles play more and then Chisenhall play as needed type thing. Go back to the role he had last year, in all honesty. So at the beginning of the year when he got hot, I don't see them going out and making a trade for a third baseman. I don't have faith that this team is going to go make a big move. I'm sorry. I mean, the only move they made this offseason really was Brandon Moss, and considering where the team was and seeing the pitching and everything, I think they should have done more. So I hope they make a move if they're in it still, and I mean right now there's no reason to believe they wouldn't. I mean 3 weeks ago I would have had it said differently, but they've played really well since then, and the pitching really seems to be coming around and stabilizing. So if the pitching keeps them in it, they need to do something, because they don't have a huge window. I mean, they have several of these players under contract for the next 3 to 4 years, but there's still plenty of holes on this team, and and especially whether they want to admit it or not, the Cavs' success, the Indians are the third team in the city right now. And I mean, they even last year, I would say, when the Cavaliers weren't great, it was really close between them and the Cavaliers for second and third spot. But they are definitely in the third spot now, and unless they really want to fall behind, they better do something quick.
Look, with the pitching, with the starting pitching performing as well as it has recently, if it continues that way, I think it would just logic dictates to me that they have to make a move. I mean, you just don't have that many windows open for you to get this type of starting pitching to get you into the playoffs. And finding look, when I say a move for a third baseman, I'm not thinking an all-star. I'm just thinking of a guy, and I
Somebody
don't know.
Who can help.
Yeah, I'm just talking about, you can get someone in league average at least to hold down that corner spot. And obviously Lindor being the backup plan for Ramirez, Lindor, or Aviles, I can understand that, but, you can't – look, I can't complain about them at all starting the year with Chisenhall. The question is just how long do you want to last with that? And, we're just into June.
Yeah.
I'll get that. I'm not saying it's an emergency yet.
But no, because they're playing better.
They are, and it's like I guess what I'm saying is if we see the team still winning, and you're still getting the good pitching performances, and you're getting the spotting hitting a month from now, on June 1st or July 1st, what will they do then? Because I would hope they would do something to help shore up whatever they see their holes are in the bullpen and in the infield. I think that they have to at that point because you've got an opportunity here.
They do have an opportunity if they continue to play the way they have for the last few weeks, and they're in the thick of it. Because let's be honest, there is no dominant team in the American League.
No, there is not.
So this with this pitching, if the pitching stays the same, they've got as good a chance as anybody. I mean,
yes.
Yeah, as bad as they played for the first 6 weeks of this season, they're 3.5 games out of the playoffs right now, and 6 games, I think 6 or 6.5 out of the division. That's amazing considering this team was, 11 games under 500 just 2 weeks ago or something like that.
Yeah, it is.
So the fact that they're still in it here, there's plenty of time left. If they keep playing, they need to do something. And I hate to say it, but I don't know that they will. I hope they prove me wrong, but right now I'm just not optimistic that they'll make that move. I think they're likely to say, well, we'll bring up Lindor, and that's going to be our move. Then we'll play Aviles at third, and Ramirez will be our utility infielder then, and we'll be great. We're getting healthy and all that. So, the other thing is too, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know that they could get an all-star. I don't even know talent-wise what they have anymore in the farm system. All their best prospects are young prospects.
Yeah, I don't have a feel for that, and I haven't. And to be honest with you, I'm more throwing out hypotheticals at you because I haven't looked at it.
Well,
I haven't read about it.
No, you're not wrong though. I mean, I keep a little bit more track of it than you do, and their best prospect is Lindor. Their next best hitting prospect is in Double-A, and he's a Tyler Naquin. And you got Zimmer and Frazier who are down in Single-A, and they're a few years away. So they just don't have a lot of top level prospects right now. Everybody has come up pretty much as far as the pitching prospects, and which is what they really had the last few years. You had Salazar and Bauer and Carrasco, and all three of them are in the rotation now, along with Kluber. So, and your relievers, you got Cody Allen in the bullpen. So it's just they're not going to trade any of their core players. I can tell you that much. And what else is left?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's a good point.
But I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. I feel like we're kind of beating up the Tribe a bit. And, I think we both give them a lot of credit for the turnaround. It's been nice. It's short-lived. Granted, I want to see more of it. But man, I'll tell you, the pitching has been fun to watch. Chris, you and I have been Tribe fans for a long time. I don't remember even those great 90s teams having this good of consistent starting pitching.
Oh, no way. The 90s teams were all about beating people to death with the bats, being and having some great defense up the middle, and then you had a fairly shut down bullpen. Now, I'm not going to say they were rock solid because they never had really a stud closer, and I don't even want to get into who.
Yeah, we won't even mention his name.
We've had that discussion plenty of times. He was the closest thing to a shutdown closer, and we saw where that finished off at.
Yeah.
This team definitely has the best pitching of any Indians team, in at least starting rotation-wise, in a long, long time.
And I have to say that as a fan, that has been fun to watch. It's been fun to watch these guys pitch out of some jams and get some incredible strikeout totals. I mean, you do feel like they're keeping you in every game, and that's exciting. It's different for me as a fan, and it's been fun to watch. So I don't want to seem like we're just shitting all over them, because I do feel good about that. I just think that I haven't had a team that I felt like, ooh, wow, we can really pitch, and so I'm like, come on, let's do this. We're on the verge of something here.
Yeah.
Let's make sure it happens. So I just hope that they do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I guess I'm going to go back to a point I made with JN and Chris Kidd a while back, that the reason I'm more down on the Indians with this stuff is because we see where they're at, and they have the potential to do much more, and it's more frustrating that they don't make the move, or make a perceived move to put them over that hump when they're right on the cusp.
Yep.
And they're like, if you just got that one more piece, that would be it. But you don't want to get that one more piece. I mean, it's different than saying, oh, this team's a 70-win team, and you're going to get that stud hitter who's going to make you a 72-win team. So that's why it's more frustrating to me right now with them, is I think they have a chance to do some damage, but they need that help, and now is the time to do it. And that's what I'm worried about. Is they're going to say, well, we're just good enough. We don't need to make that extra move, and I think that's a big mistake.
Yeah.
So, but enjoy the ride while we can. Hopefully it gets going. Hopefully Gomes gets his bat as he gets more acclimated back in there. He can make a big difference in that lineup too. I mean, we got rid of Perez did fine, but he was kind of outed last year. He had a pretty decent batting average when he played in a limited role, and you see when he was playing every day, he was not hitting 200. So we need Gomes to come back, because he's one of the few hitters left that I think actually who can make a significant dent.
Agreed.
So
yeah, we got to give him a chance to kind of find a swing back after being out for a while. So
yeah, exactly. So, all right, real quick before let's touch on the Browns real quick. So they had the draft. They didn't draft any quarterbacks. They actually went pretty conservative, I'd say. Well, I mean, the only thing I think has annoyed us a little bit is they didn't draft really a receiver either until the end of the fourth round was when they took Mail or whatever.
Yep.
So
I liked the draft. I thought it was good. I didn't have any real objections. I understand what they were doing with Irving in taking him on that second first round pick. I get it. I think it was smart. It was practical. As far as if you look at need and where they prioritized, I'm even okay with the receiver aspect of it. I mean, if you couldn't get a top-notch quarterback, I think what they did was good in the sense that they tried to address stopping the run. They tried to address some depth.
To address defense, period.
Yeah, they tried to address rushing the passer. They tried to address depth on that offensive line. I think all those things were good, and they did well with that. I think that they're showing now some depth in that secondary, and it's rare to say that the Browns have depth in a position, but they do. So I think a lot of it remains to be seen. I will say this: I saw a debate kind of pop up on Twitter today, and I don't know if you follow Ryan in Columbus. He's a great follow, great Browns fan, smart guy, analytical. And he said, I think the Browns are going to be a lot better than people are giving them credit for. and he was making a case for it. And while I appreciate his optimism, I'm still looking at a team that has probably the worst quarterback room in the NFL. They have no established running back, although I like some of the talent, but it's not established. Their wide receiver core is iffy at best. If you're going to have a strength on offense, I'm cool with the offensive line being a strength, but they couldn't stop the run on defense. They had problems rushing the passer. And now they have a whole new offensive system. I don't mean to be Debbie Downer about this, but I think we have to be very realistic that this has the distinct possibility of being a rough year.
Yeah.
And I think that is not trying to be overly pessimistic about it. I think it's just being realistic. But, it's a long way to go. I'm a bit stunned at all the fans I see kind of clamoring for Manziel to start. Look, Josh McCown isn't making me smile or be happy, but good Lord, Johnny is, he's got a long way to go to show us something. And I can't imagine that he'll be an opening day starter. It's hard for me to see that. So, but the truth is, I'm not going to worry too much about the Browns until training camp. I tend to be Brown-centric, and I'm just trying to push them out of my mind for now.
Well, and I mean, luckily the Cavaliers have had this great playoff run going, so nobody really had a reason to talk about the Browns. I'm just going to put it this way. I don't think anything the Browns did on draft day is going to change the record that they were going to have going into draft day.
I think that's probably true. It's too much to expect Danny Shelton to start and all of a sudden the whole run defense plays better.
No, I think they'll be an improved team, but I don't think it's necessarily going to mean more wins.
Yeah, I think if the run defense plays better, it's because they're more experienced at it and kind of understand their assignments more. If certain things pan out better, it'll be due to things like that than necessarily this influx of talent. We'll have to wait and see. But you're right. Does a stout running game, a stout run defense is it going to take us from 7 wins to 11 wins? No. It's not. But you want to see improvement with it.
Yeah, and like I said, I think the team is better after the draft than they were before it. We'll see what happens. I mean, I don't see enough improvement on any of the positions on offense to say that they're going to score more points than they did last year. The quarterback situation really isn't any better than last year, if not slightly worse. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, it's just I don't think anybody can kill the Browns for the draft. And it's pretty much we'll see what happens at this point with the Browns. But that's the way it is. So, but luckily we have the Cavaliers to enjoy.
I know. I'm psyched.
The next 6 days, we have the Cavaliers to enjoy. So let's enjoy that while it lasts. And we'll see what happens. I've already told a cousin in Ohio that. If the Cavaliers win, he's welcome to tip a car over in my honor.
I've already picked out a couch in the house.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's already designated. This one is for burning. I'm going to drag it out to the backyard, light it on fire.
So Cleveland didn't riot when that ruling came out last week, but they're going to burn the town down because they won a championship.
I'm really, I have to keep in mind, if they win a title or if they get to Game 6 and they can clinch, I'm debating, will my life allow me to drive back to Cleveland? I don't know that I'm going to spend the money to get into that game.
You have a much better chance to get there than I do.
Yes, I do, because at least I can drive there. But will I do that and just be there for the celebration? It would be awfully cool if that would happen. So got my fingers crossed.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed and hope the Cavaliers can pull it out, and we'll see what happens. So it should be an interesting series. We'll we'll see what the Indians do over the next month, and there's not going to be anything to talk about with the Browns for a while.
Nope.
So
we'll let them sit on the back burner for a while.
We'll let them marinate for a while, and
yep,
worry to deal with football season later. So, all right. Well, any parting thoughts for this evening?
No, I'm just thrilled for tomorrow. It's going to be exciting, and you know, this was. Or yes, Thursday. Thank you. I keep thinking today's Wednesday. My mantra this whole year, I don't know if it's a mantra, but what I keep trying to tell myself is enjoy the ride.
Yep.
You know, I think we get hung up in these things, and I'm sure I'll be stressed in the moment. I'll be cursing on Twitter. I'll be doing all those things, but the truth is, I want to try and enjoy the ride of these title games. I think they can be a lot of fun, win or lose. I mean, obviously, I want us to win, but I think we got a chance to have a great experience here. So I'm looking forward to it.
Let's just hope to God the Cavaliers win, because I do not want to have to listen to all these people out here for the next whoever knows how long if the Warriors win.
Yeah.
Because God knows they're going to be coming after me in full force if the Warriors win, and especially if it's like a sweep or anything like that. I'll never hear the end of that. I know that. So, but then again, if the Cavaliers miraculously do the opposite, well, I wouldn't want to be them.
Yes, exactly.
So, with that, I'm going to say have a good evening, everybody, and go Cavs, go Indians.
Go Cavs.
And, let's go win a championship, LeBron.
I know. Let's do this.
All right, we'll talk to you guys next month.
All right, bye, everybody.